I just want to show and talk a little bit about a general thing that we are, of course, experiencing now as it has been implemented full blast after World War II, especially. And it's also part of the eugenics agenda and mentality of the people who started that over a century ago, and the big families, especially the Rockefeller and the Carnegie, as they are known to have those foundations that they created at the time. And of course, to the public, it looked good as funding some hospitals and research centers and children's places or orphanages. But unfortunately, again, most of the people were too oblivious to the true intent of those people who still consider themselves as part of the elite, of course, and consider other human beings as a commodity to play with, experiment with, turn into slave, everything. So again, it's going to go a bit on the conspiracy side, but also you can see with one of the pictures, which is my point, one of the most famous quote from Edgar Hoover, who was the director of the FBI or whatever at the time. So FBI guy should have known quite a bit of what was going on. And as I meant before, unfortunately, as much as a lot has been done to different populations in different countries, famously or infamously, as mainly like China and Russia, there's not actually as such a twisted way to do it as America has done. As I meant, of course, after the World War II, they still spared the best Nazis and Nazi doctors to welcome them to America for the knowledge that they had already from the experimentation they had done, and then to go on and move it to another level, and both physically and mentally, right? Of course, the whole brainwashing and brain manipulation, all the experiments that have been done, and there are a few videos, of course, online that can be seen of those experiments, which back then actually were not so shocking to the public in one way. I mean, they were documented and fine, but things have changed a little bit. But anyway, that's one side. But also, again, that's kind of a post that will sound a little bit pessimistic and kind of a doomsday thing. Like we are doomed, and yes, we are, of course, because just like David Suzuki said it also, right? We are all sitting in a car heading at full speed towards the wall, and everyone is just fighting for where they want to sit. But yeah, obviously, again, there's no denial anymore, even to the ones who want to remain so optimistic, that right now the situation is definitely just getting worse and worse and worse in the world. And there was no other option anyway, because of the other picture that I post. And to sum it up, and something I became aware quite early on, but again, when it has reached such a scale, and again, we have to thank the naivety and oblivion to the previous generation, grandparents and parents, around World War II and after, to, of course, still already being well conditioned to believe the official narrative, right? That ultimately everything is for the good of the country, for the good of the people, for the safety of the people, and for the sake of the research that's supposed to help everyone to make a better world, right? Which they still actually use as an argument with the New World Order and the Great Reset, supposedly, of Mr. Schwab and WEF. But you can see that picture sums it up very good, actually. And I would say, unfortunately, I belong to that exactly that transition generation. Still, grandparents haven't been exposed to too much yet. I mean, grandparents' time between the two wars and around the World War II, people were still living a lot in the countryside, with the old ways. They still didn't have so much technology invaded their home, their life, and they still hadn't lost yet all the useful knowledge, practical knowledge for life. So they were still eating pretty healthy, still exercising, still moving around. So even though they got affected, and we started to see, of course, my grandparents were already known to have cancer, such things, but there was still some healthy stuff in them. And for me, I was born at a time where exactly we had already all around those kind of goodies. So as much as I inherited some decent, healthy genes from those people who had still a natural part, I also got raised through that flooding of the market of unhealthy candies, food on, chemical and expansion of processing of food, and the evolution of junk food. Of course, all of that came from America, right? So the whole mentality of the American society or leaders that were like on a free will. And the point, again, is at a time they had a free license, right? Just a blank page again, and nobody cared really about safety issues or like assessment agencies to see or if those things were safe or not safe for human consumption, if there would be long-term effect. Nobody cared at the time. So again, for a long time, until decades later, actually, they started to implement those just to make it look good, because now we know also that those main agencies, especially in the States, between CDC, FDA, and all that, they are all corrupt, of course, right? There's, as we have seen in some documentaries, when people do a bit of research and look at who are the directors and the leaders of those agencies, there's such, how do you call it, rotating door thing and complete conflict of interest for the position that some people have had between the big corporation who are producing all those nasty stuff and the position in the official agencies that are supposed to monitor them and control them, right? But of course, most people who would listen to that now know about that, but anyway. But the point is that, yes, it has reached a point, and also that mentality of typical humans, especially Americans like that, with that big ego, and it's like never can admit wrong. We know better than nature. We can fight against nature and control nature, or do better, improve on nature, right? Is that mentality again. But that's never happening, only to make it worse. But the point is that anytime they make something bad with bad consequences, instead of totally admitting that and try to change completely, they rather try to fix it with the same direction, in the same way that they have created already those problems. That's the sad part of that human mentality too. Again, that's another famous quote from David Suzuki, like that. But humans always think that they have a great idea, which and they can improve upon nature, and they never again think too much ahead for the consequences. And ultimately, when they make huge mistake, actually that affects the whole planet or some big group of population, the weather, anything, instead of totally stop because they realize it's wrong, no, they say we're going to try to fix it with the same mentality, which means that they just keep increasing the level of the problems and issues they have created. It's always that mentality of, well, we're going to fix it and repair it, but yeah, in the same way, just to keep making things worse and worse and worse anyway. So now we see that every level, right? And but here is a little list on that one picture, which gives an idea, and it's of course in every field, right? In every kind of scientific research field has been part of that, and that's why we can sum it up now by saying that it's everywhere. And that's why, even though some people mean to go off grid, of course you're not safe that way anywhere in the world now, because everything is everywhere. I mean, all the nasty chemicals have infiltrated nature in every way. So it's everywhere, like the air, the water, either ocean or rivers, and the soil, everywhere. So there are some famous things that are known, and it has affected the next generation. So that's why, even though I use some words that maybe some people won't like, but there's no wonder that actually the next generation, with the parents so full of those kind of chemicals in the bloodstream and in the mind or in the brain, have created those generations with more and more issues at both levels, physical and mental. And that's just the way it is. And there's no turning back now, of course. It has been so. Again, they pretend to try to take action, that something should be done. There again is the whole narrative, political side of thing, to make believe that they care, but it's just for using argument to sway the population around. But they have known that it has gone too far, and it's kind of too late already, even though some scientists want to believe. But already they were talking about, the warming of the earth too, that they said it was maybe going to be dangerous if we increase about so much, in the next so many years. It will be an increase of 1 or 2 degrees, whatever, and they're already over that much faster. Like, of course, they wouldn't know. They want to stay optimistic, but no, it's already too late. So much has been done, and so much is still done, pretending to care, but all in the same direction. That, of course, it's unstoppable now. I mean, it could change, but everything would have to stop suddenly, and still it would take a lot of time. The one little example we had, right, is suddenly during COVID, when there was hardly any plane in the sky at first for some time, and everybody was locked down, suddenly people start to rediscover blue skies, and no more huge smog in those cities that are famous for a thick, bad fog or smog. So that was an example. But again, and lately, of course, the last few days, big study come out about how many, how huge quantity of microplastic are found in different organs of humans, in every part, and especially also again in the brain. So, of course, who would think that so much plastic, right? We have, again, industrialization. People always welcome the so-called progress, development of science, and to make life more convenient and comfortable. Well, karma is there. You always pay the price when you go in that direction of a weak mind that wants everything more comfortable and more convenient. There's always consequences from nature, exactly. And so, everything has about plastic. That's exactly our generations, right? And everything from petroleums, yeah. Then it has consequences right now, huge ones everywhere. But yeah, lately, one of the latest one is, yeah, how many microplastics are found in different organs of the body and the brain, and exactly affecting people between that and the vaccine. Then yeah, that's doing a lot of damage. But again, because it's affecting most of the people slowly but surely, gradually, it's still becoming kind of the norm, and people see it as just the way it is, kind of, because they're part of it. That's the problem. Again, not having the ability to take the distance and step back and look at it objectively, and to be able to see that evolution, which is gradual. Yeah, that just makes people accept kind of blindly or unconsciously what's happening. Yet, the result is what we face now at every scale. Again, that mentality of people never accepting to be so wrong and never backing down, and no humility, and all of it becoming more violent, more angry, more daring, more shameless, in many ways toward each other. You could say, of course, and I speak like an old man, of course, like it has been through every generation. There's always the old man's way of looking at things, but not like some decent, respectable values that the human society had before. It's completely lost now, of course, because it has been too far now, affected in every way possible, but basically with the processing of things, processed food, right? The arising of junk food everywhere after the wars, and so yeah, and fertilizers and GMOs, and anyway, it's right there, right, the list. But yeah, and also, of course, lately, the chemtrails in the sky. So exactly, it's everywhere. And again, I won't mention too much, but for the women's side mainly, which now is turning also into the men's side. Yeah, by the way, so yeah, okay, women could be happy at a time. Yeah, progress, evolution, can have the pills, contraception. After that, it has been shown enough that how many of those pills or estrogens have ended up in everywhere in the world, in the soil, in the waters, affecting many things. Then there was a documentary that was done already quite a while back that is called The Disappearing Male. And again, not so mentioned officially, but especially because of the estrogens that's why, I mean, we see that evolution with the new trend of the transgenderism, especially that way, and more and more deformities, and what used to make men naturally, that has been affected a lot, from hormonal to physiological to physical deformities at that level. So, but and that documentary is quite old, yet it was already showing and alarming people. But again, and then of course, as a big industry for women, again, I won't go too much on my classic rant against the makeup and everything, but I mean, women can complain about cancer, breast cancer, and all this kind of thing, but when you are so easily convinced to take care so much about your image, outside look, that satisfies so easily to you, big sense of vanity and narcissism, and that you use all those chemicals between the makeup, the dyes, dyeing product for the hair, the paint, the nail polish, and to paint the nails, that has been known with the lead. And actually, if you look at the regular nail polish, how many chemicals, nasty chemicals there are in those, and all these things that you put on you, so much of it get inside your body. So again, don't complain about those consequences when you keep falling for your vanity and narcissism and living at that superficial level. And then the perfume, same, of course, famous perfumes, but also so many chemicals involved in that. So it's everywhere afterwards, right? And then after how they made the new generation of clothing, again, some people realize it and they like to go back to natural fibers. But for a while, when you were happy with your nylon and lycra and all these, and the chemical product that they use to make them, and all that gets on your skin, and inside your body. GMO, we know that. As far as GMOs, one of the first documentaries that I watched a long time ago, which as part of when I started to wake up also to certain things, that was Food Inc. And that showed a lot at the time with the very evil corporation like Monsanto, of course, which doesn't exist anymore because finally some people managed to show, but after decades of abuse, and but still part of Bayer anyway. So no, it's Bayer, the big corporation. And as the first documentary that I watched like that, also to wake up a bit, is called The Corporation. So now there are also two sequel of these. So there was The Corporation, then there is a new documentary also called The Corporation 2 or something, which is not as good, of course, as usual, but it's okay. And then there was Food Inc. And then after that there was another follow-up also. But anyway, they showed quite a bit of how everything works there. And of course, one other side of it, one of the most insidious, nasty, twisted way that humans can think, just the same way like Edgar Hoover describes, is pharmaceutical, right? The big pharmas. Ultimately, again, people think that they are there to help you, to cure, but, as it is famous for the quote of the basic lesson in the business model of pharma: if I cure you, I lose a customer, but if I can put you on a pill or a drug that you need to get prescribed every so often for the rest of your life, then it's good business, right? So unfortunately, and the vaccine have been, of course, always a big topic, but to think that pharmaceutical and the health industry in general, and even worse now with the World Health Organization, WHO, which is basically owned and controlled by Bill Gates, another very big evil person with evil intentions, megalomaniac who likes to control, who you can see he doesn't like to be told no to himself, and he thinks that he has the mind to control everything, and now he starts to be in charge of so many things in the world. And again, as many people have posted, how amazing that can be, that one guy who is basically a geek originally with computers and software have become allowed to be kind of in charge of so many fields globally, right? From healthcare to weather control to climate control to experimenting on vaccines and GMOs, and now of course he can buy more and more land, as again he's the biggest private landowner in America, and he's only for that sake of destroying all the good land and not let it available for the people who wanted to use it properly like it was meant originally. So anyway, but pharmaceuticals, of course, people can be aware of the huge business that is, and they definitely don't have your good health and well-being in mind. But this, for that picture, is mostly about the physical, chemical things, but then also, unfortunately, and I talked about that in another audio, but what Edgar Hoover refers to also is the whole brainwashing, conditioning, cultural conditioning, manipulation of the mind, and how everything is received and perceived to create this new type of humans, which have not much to do with a good old original human, who would have been more in tune and harmony with nature and respecting more the laws of nature. But now it's quite a mess, of course. It's quite a mess on the outside, because it's quite a mess on the inside of every human, especially in the mind, in the brain. All those chemicals and plastics and everything have come into the brain of the people, and again it affects the genetics. So unfortunately, and that's why I go very much against Elon Musk. That's why you could also wonder what Elon Musk's goal and intention is really, when he tries to push everyone to basically have as many children as they could, and they get worried about that trend of those population decreasing now. I mean, in a sense of people not wanting to have kids anymore, or not having kids, but one reason is exactly because people become more and more infertile, exactly because of all those chemicals in the body and everything. And also, but yeah, I mean, what they have done to the human brain and human mind in general globally affects people, and they have displaced the center of interest from, again, what was the basic original way as barely evolved animal, the instinct of reproduction to create offspring, just law of nature, evolution, basic animal way of evolution. But they have created, of course, a world of more and more selfish people like that. But on the other hand, of course, is there a point to bring new beings, human beings, in this world that's quite doomed, and where no one is pretty much healthy anymore, really, because of everything. I mean, and the planet has been made in a way that is not sustainable, of course, and life is not really sustainable so much anymore. I mean, it will be, but in a very unhealthy way, or a bit crazy way. And it's I mean, if you want to, but they try to motivate you to produce more children, because they still need the commodities, right, to sustain their agenda, their system, right? Of course, if there are less and less people, then the system will collapse, the system they have created. Yet they still want a new kind of human, which has not much to do with the original one. And as I meant, of course, as the main point for me is they have managed to reach in different ways, chemically, physiologically, and by mental manipulation, and through the devices with the electromagnetic and frequencies and all that. They managed to destroy the spiritual aspect of every being, and the ability for people to evolve properly with some kind of awareness and wisdom as what the human should be about, to go within. They have managed to destroy those abilities of introspection and becoming a real spiritual person, and aware and wise, and rather well lobotomized, zombified, unhealthy, regularly sick, and addicted to the outside world, so-called human being. But yeah, the future will be interesting that way. Exactly. Yeah, we are some generation that are experiencing quite a change, because as things go, of course, everything is evolving exponentially. So it will be interesting quite soon.